Cool, all right, let's get moving. So we're gonna work on an old school grip today and submission, but it's something we don't touch on a lot, and it's something that's really one of the best things in the game. So we're gonna look at Kimura today. Who's a suitable uke today? Jesus, it is getting rough. Actually, I use NASA. So we're gonna start out with a passing option that I showed you a few weeks ago, which will lead us to Kimura. So what we're gonna do is this. We're gonna come in here to our split squat position. So we're gonna split his legs, and we're gonna start to knee cut here. So we're here like this. And we're gonna look to take a grip on the top arm. So we're gonna pull our elbow in, and we're just gonna take this under clasp grip like this, where we grab the inside of the wrist, and then we're gonna use our chest over the top of it. So for him to pull away from the grip, it's actually surprisingly strong, this grip. All right, when he tries to just rip out of it, if I put my chest on top of the weak part of the grip, or even just gripping like this, where he wants to split out of the grip here, it uses the weak parts of his shoulder, because he's got to kind of try and raise up out of the grip here, lift it up to split, yeah. So where the weak part of the grip is, it's actually really hard for him to split. So he cross frames. It's not that hard to just work into here to a position where I can grip underneath, and I put my chest under the top, on top. Now from here, I'm going to drop to a knee. My elbow is going to go over the top, and I'm going to start to lock up at figure 4. Now from here, I'm going to look to widen my knee and step out of the half guard, and then we're going to come around the head here. Now anytime I lock up at figure 4, I've got the option of either using my thumb or going without the thumb. Here's the way to think about this. Both are fine, but whenever I have the grip by itself, so I haven't locked up the figure 4 yet, the thumb is very useful. Once it's locked up, now it's just viewer's choice, whether you want to have the thumb or no thumb. I prefer to have no thumb for my braking, but it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. But it does make a huge difference having no thumb when you only have one hand, because you can always strip out of the grip. So you're going to use your thumb until you get to figure 4 grips, in which case you can roll your thumb out or you can maintain it. It's up to you. Okay, so I want us to have a think about that. We'll go from a different angle, NASA. Come across this way, yep. So we're here in a knee cut position like so. I reach in and take this under clasp. I go to my knee as my elbow goes over the top, and we start to lock up. I'm going to widen my knee and step out, and then all you're going to focus on is this. We're just going to squat our legs either side of his head. I know it's kind of awkward, but this pinning of his head between your knees is what we want. If he can move his head around, this is better for him. And if I can have his head stuck between mine and my hands locked up, this is going to be better for me. So pretty basic. Let's start with this, and then we'll move on. So you can keep practicing that setup, because I think it's not a bad way to create a pass. Now, you can roll through, but I'm not showing that today. Meaning, you can roll through on this and start to create situations like this, and then either try to come back up to your knees or work from here. But I do find that when that happens off the pass, sometimes his knees stay to his chest and it becomes a bit of a problem. He pummels inside the grip. We never establish a grip. I'm going to say if you can just step around the corner, it's probably better for now. So if I can get into this position and I can lock up here and I can step out and then I can come around to here, this is better. He's stuck on his back and you've got a figure 4 grip, which is one of the best grips in the game. So notice the pressure I put on here. I pull my elbow into his armpit and my wrist pulls his wrist towards his back. And my second hand pushes his wrist. So I'm doing this to him the whole time. I don't like to leave slack in the grip. I like to keep the grip with tension, and we're kind of pulling up and back. So I'm pulling my lats to, my elbows to my ribs with my lat, and I hold in like so. So now the whole deal with Kimura is, can I get his hand separated behind his back? If I can't, I'll either try to put his hand behind his back or we'll progress from hands in front. But what we're going to work on today is the idea that we can separate hands. Now I find if you leave slack in his grip, it's very hard to break grips because they tend to move. So even if he's not that strong, his grips are moving. So some type of pinning of this bottom arm is going to be useful. So if you can even just take your shin and slide it over the top. I know you've basically got your ass in their face. That's just going to be how it is. Your shin goes over the top here. Now when I start to move the grip, you can take it away as I strip. So I can push my knee down and away. Hold on, NASA. So rather than just pulling, if they're being very strong, it can be difficult. But I go down and away, and I find this hard for him to maintain. When he goes to bring his hands back together, we just put the back of his hand behind his back. Now don't be rough on your training partner at this stage. He's pretty flexible in the shoulders, but if your partner's not, which most guys aren't, put their wrist down nice and low, just to be nice to people. If you're in a match or a fight and you need to break someone's arm off, put the back of their hand between their shoulder blades. This is going to put them in a point where they're nearly on breaking already. Because what I really want for a good Kimura is his two shoulders and his elbow to be in a straight line. And the more that they're out of alignment, the less pressure. It's not that I can't break it, you definitely can, but this will put more load on the shoulder. Just also so you know, we sometimes see humerus breaks, so the upper arm here, we see these get snapped or spiral fractured. So don't think, oh, my shoulder isn't hurting too much, I'm gonna hold on to this. Because we do see where you get spiral breaks and you see it, you hear a big crack and it cracks through and it rotates through the whole humerus. So that's pretty horrible. So the Kimura is a very powerful technique. So I separate the hands and I put them behind his back. I'm putting it low for the purpose of demo. You guys will put it as high as possible if you're trying to finish him. Now from here, I don't try and step up and finish. This is old school. And I always use the example of George St. Pierre versus Dan Hardy. He fought Dan Hardy and Dan just survived. He survived the whole fight, but GSP out-grappled him. But GSP put him here a few times and he'd try and finish, and Dan was pretty flexible and he'd straighten his arm and he managed to get out of the position. So we're not gonna try and finish Kimuras when they're on their side, we're gonna lay people flat. So once we put his back down on the mat, I'm gonna come up and I'm gonna lead with my elbow and put my elbow on the mat. So now I have a base. Then I'm gonna go from being on my shin here and I'm gonna slide it up over his shoulder next to his ear. And then the last detail is I'm gonna take a big step over his head, because if I try to finish here and he sits up on me, and we'll look at this later, this is not really ideal. This is good for him. He wants to create movement and I wanna limit movement. So I slide my knee to his ear and then I step over big here like this. So if he wants to get up now, he just runs into my ass. He can't actually get up, I'm sitting on him. And now I go belly down and look towards his hip. Now to break his arm, I keep my hands locked, I slide my elbow under his elbow, and then the finish is not so much of a push of my hands, it's more of a pull of my elbow. So I'm pulling the elbow with my elbow more than I'm pushing the hand. The hand is just stuck under his back. And he's quite flexible, most guys will probably tap earlier there. We'll just start from the Kimura. So we call this dorsal Kimura, this position. And you're gonna pick up this in other ways, which we're gonna look at later. So I'm here, I try to separate hands, it might be difficult. So I slide my knee over as best as possible, and then I take it down and away, and I separate his hands and put his hand behind his back. I start to pivot onto my leg and lead with my elbow, and then I take a little bunny hop over the arm, and then a big step over the head, and I put him flat. So he's laying on his own arm now. My elbow goes under the elbow, I drive off my feet and look at the hip, and I start to break this direction. So where I'm thinking about driving my power is across here. This shoulder to this hip, and I'm pushing through this direction while I lift the elbow. Let's give it a go. Let's address something. We'll go from this direction. Just go head to me, please. So let's address something. I come in here, I separate the hands, I put the hand behind the back and I lead. Notice I lead, I keep saying you lead with the elbow. If you lead with your head, this is where he makes a big bridge. You've got no hands, you'll either have to undo and post or you'll face plant. So as I come around the corner here, he's gonna try and slip his elbow, but at least I can put my elbow on the mat and my head doesn't get planted and I don't have to undo my grip. Now from here I slide and I start to then step over. Now, if at any stage for some reason you can't step over, whether this hand came in front of the body and he started to sit up on you, this is not ideal, okay? Just so we understand, this is not good. Don't continue to finish your Kimura at this stage. But the other thing to consider is if you let go to get on top here, the scramble may go in your favor where you get it back on top, or at minimum, he might just get a reset. So one is I let go, I try to get on top, he tries to get on top, it's a bit of, who knows who wins this. Or he goes back to his back because I've let go, he can go back to guard, but we've kind of lost the advantage we had of the Kimura. So what we're gonna practice is this. I lock up here, but he managed to sit up on me. I'm gonna take my head, I'm gonna do a shoulder roll on the far side. So I'll go over the top of his body here. So as he sits up, I get over to the other side of his body, like this, rather than laying on my back over that direction. His hand's still behind his back, so we're okay. If his hand was in front of his back, I wouldn't do this. But so if his hand's in front of the body, we wouldn't go here. Hand behind the back, we're still okay. Now, I'm just gonna look to continue to rotate him through, and I'm gonna force another roll. As I force another roll, my knee goes in a position like I wanted, and we make sure we get the big step over the head, and now when he tries to step up, he can't go anywhere. So for whatever reason, you start to dedicate putting the arm down to the mat here, and then he sits up on you. We make a big detail of jumping to the far side. And now we roll him all the way back through, and now I switch back and I step over the head. So this is very important. I'm sitting across his shoulder line. When he tries to sit up, it should just be, he can't go anywhere. If you're doing anything like this and this starts to happen, we have to be able to create this roll, and that's why I want us to practice. Let's go. Now let's talk about locked hands we can't get behind the back. We'll go this way this time. So we've got locked hands that we can't get behind the back. Now there's so many different options from here. There's plenty of ways that we can continue to try to get hands separated, or we just change modes and we start to work around the body. So I could start to look at sitting and going into maybe back takes and head and arm attacks and triangles. You could do this. We're not going to do that today. We're going to go to Toriko platter today, so we're going to use our legs. So the idea with the Toriko platter is that I introduce my legs to do the Kimura work rather than my hands. So it'll look tricky at first, but it's not too bad once you get the hang of it. So I don't care that his hands are locked. If anything, I'm kind of happy with that. And all I'm going to look at trying to do here is this. I'm looking at throwing my leg across the body. So all you've got to be able to do is take the back of this knee and get it over his wrist. So I don't want to step into the half guard. That's not really what we're after at this stage. What I want to do is step across the body. So your weight will slightly transition onto your other knee. That'll allow this to become unweighted. And I can step over and put the hand right, or his wrist right in the back of my knee. And then I undo my hands and I just lock over here on my own hip. Okay, so now I've got a free hand. So you might be thinking, well, what's doing the job of controlling the wrist? One is the fact that he's got his hands gripped, but secondly, the back of my knee has that control. And then my second hand is just going to come out here and it's going to be a post hand. I want to lean towards the far side. I don't want to fall on my back. So if we thought about his center line, I lean across the center line towards this way where my body is. I don't lean back over that direction. Now to apply the Kimura, we think about our other tactics from before. I want to try to slide everything up the body. So I just slide as best I can. Now he's going to move, he's going to walk towards me to try and bring everything back down low. But I want to take the elbow up to the shoulders, and then I need to start to cause that lifting of the elbow. So I drive my bottom leg towards the head like this. So I'm actually up on my feet and I'm pushing my bottom leg like so, and I'm lifting with the elbow. And we're starting to get a Kimura type action. So he doesn't even have to let go. I can still get him, yeah, even if he doesn't let go. And if he does let go, I just make sure that I don't let the hand pop free. So I back heel enough with my leg so that if he straightens his arm to get out of there, it's kind of stuck, and then I can keep it coming around the corner. So Toriko platter is a little bit of a tricky movement in the beginning, but it's a pretty powerful move if you get good with it. So we're here, hands are locked, so I'm going to step over. And this is what you've got to get good at, is this step over without being captured in the legs. As I step over, the back of my knee goes right over his wrist and my hand locks on my hip. And I go to a posting position. I start to rotate, I take everything up the body, and then I lift as I start to turn towards the head, and we get the tap. Be careful with your training partner, it's pretty tight. Just make sure you hear out for them to tap because their hands are locked together. Let's give it a go. Okay, let's switch modes slightly now and see where else we can pick up this Kimura attack from. So we looked at the idea of stepping over through the guard. Now basically, anytime we're in side control, and he doesn't like the idea of being pinned and he starts to turn in, anytime this starts to happen, we can look at it making the most of these exposed elbows. So anytime there's an exposed elbow, as long as I can take my thumb inside it, I'm in a pretty good spot to look at locking up my figure four. So that's pretty simple. If he turns away, as long as I can get my thumb inside here, I can lock up the figure four. He turns towards me, as long as I bring my thumb inside, and start to step around the corner, I can get this. So all we're after is just, can you get your thumb in around the back of their elbow, and we can start to go. He goes the other way, as long as I can get to here, I'm going all right. Obviously, if he's gone all the way to turtle, I don't really look at Kimura as much, okay? So it's more so when he's still on his side, but if I can get my thumb inside here, and I can lock the Kimura, if he tries to go to turtle, it should be basically impossible, because he's got to go all the way over with me gripping onto the side of him. Go to the turtle, please. As long as his elbow's behind his back, I'll be okay. If his elbow goes in front and he can turtle, now it's going to be a bit of an awkward position. If he can, heads can spit out the back way, I might get left behind here, and this gets a bit messy. So let's just now practice the idea that anywhere from north-south to side control, he turns towards you or away, it doesn't matter. And then we can start to look at picking up this grip. He turns away, I can look coming inside here and picking up this grip. He turns towards, I can come inside here and pick up this grip. And once you get the hang of this, then we're just rebooting back to the things that we looked at. I step over the head, and then we start to look at separating hands. So I'm not trying to go too tricky today, but just this idea of picking up this is going to take you a long way. So let's just practice this to finish, and then we'll get some rounds in. Let's go.